For Vibe 105, this is Fatima Hussein. The City of Toronto is set to have its Mayoral By-Elections, and Vibe 105 has extended its platforms to candidates running to be Mayor of Toronto. Of those who accepted our invite include policy analyst Chloe Brown and former police chief for the City of Toronto, Mark Saunders. The two are currently running to be Mayor of the City of Toronto. We interviewed each candidate separately about the issues facing the city, and this is what they have to say. What is your vision for the City of Toronto?
My vision of Toronto is basically it speaks to the story of the newcomer. I came in, first generation. My parents came from Jamaica with 6 kids, hoping for a better education for their kids. And here we are fast forwarding and through a lot of opportunity and the city believing in me, I became the chief of police for the largest municipal agency in the country, and now I have an opportunity to run for the largest city in the country. And my platform is from 38 years of community service and public service, and not, with a desk and a pen and paper, but actually being in communities, attending town halls, resolving problems with community, running a large organization over $1 billion a year and 7,400 people. These are all transferable skills that I believe makes me the front runner for community safety. If a community is not safe, it's not healthy. And if it's not healthy, it's not vibrant. It's not Toronto. And I want to do everything I can to make it a beautiful city. We have amazing people, but we can do better.
Chloe, you ran for mayor in the 2022 election and finished third. And this time you're running for mayor because, quote, there is an appetite for change. So how do you define change in context of your vision for Toronto?
When I think about change, it's really, we cannot afford to continue doing the same things that we have been doing. And a lot of us realize it. We might not have the words for vocalizing it in the language of politicians, but all of us know fundamentally that something has to give. And we're at the point where workers, particularly in the working class, whether you're working 20,000 or 120,000, you cannot afford housing. Groceries are eating into your rent. Every part of your life is now threatening the other part of your life. And that appetite for change makes people realize that they can't keep eating the same messages. So it's really I don't want to say spiritual, but it's a change of ethos where people realize that, yes, they're afraid of what's ahead, but if they don't accept things have to change, then they can't continue living here. And that's such a big statement for a lot of us to say, whether you're first generation newcomer or, someone who's the thought that you could buy a house here. And that's like the dream of my parents for me, not necessarily myself. And it's something that's running through generations, cultures, and that appetite unites us.
Affordable living is a key issue concerning the city. So how would you describe affordable, and what's your plan for the city?
Yeah, and that's a great question because, affordability by definition is 20 points below market value, but you can have 2 people double income $100,000 and $1 million house now becomes $800,000. That's still pretty far. But I'm talking about it from the different strands. So when we talk about supportive housing, people that live with mental health or are suffering from addiction, then we have affordable when we talk about geared towards income, folks that are our workforce. If we don't have a workforce where people can afford to stay, it makes it hard for small businesses, but it makes it harder for big businesses because they look to see whether or not people that they're going to be hiring can get to and from work. So looking at it from the various strands, whether it's from supportive or the different strands of affordability, is the key to success. But the number one issue has been supply. The fact that it has been an incredibly slow process with City Hall. It takes an average of 3 to 5 years to get an approval. That is not what Toronto should be doing. My commitment is to make sure that approvals are done within a year by using the necessary resources and added technology and putting a navigator to be accountable, as well as to make sure the builders are accountable too. And we need to build.
When we talk about affordable in policy terms, it's 30% of your net income after taxes. And this is where there's been so much confusion, because when you hear politicians referring to the middle class, it's a very nebulous group. Meanwhile, this is a group of people that are in the working class that have to work because they don't have the cash or liquid assets to be like hyper privileged. So that being said, when I'm talking about affordable housing, it's not just housing, it's also places for business. And that is a part of affordable real estate strategy that uses policy mechanisms like a community land trust to transfer the legal ownership of public land to community organizations. And this happens with charity groups, churches that are holding land for 99 years in perpetuity because they're fulfilling a common good. There are more groups fulfilling common goods outside of the traditional Western charity groups, if I can say that. And I've noticed this along my canvassing route, where it's like you have the Muslim Business Expo that want food banks. They want affordable housing for their seniors, and they're disabled as well. So do the African groups. So do like European groups. Everyone needs anchors to the land. If you're a tenant, that opportunity has like moved beyond your grip. And it's not just residential tenants. If you're looking around and seeing the empty storefronts, commercial tenants. And we don't talk about them because we have this current polarization between business and the people. But if you really look at the micro scale, it's small business, small tenant versus large tenant, large business. So this is where the public's, like public servants and public land, should be given to community groups as opposed to the government giving it away to private developers, because they're 100% of the time going to develop it for for-profit means. Give it to community groups who have non-for-profit solutions, and they need that land to continue delivering things that are just not for profit, but for the common good.
Continuing the conversation on housing, homelessness is another important topic. So what's your plan of action, if elected mayor, concerning homelessness?
Yeah, and again, homelessness directly connects with the supply or the lack of supply. But what we have right now are a lot of people who are in dire straits. The city has declared homelessness as a crisis. City caused the situation to happen because lack of leadership, but I promise to make sure that my leadership qualities will help advance that cause. But we can't take it just as one group of people. Again, it too comes in different strands. Some people are just in financial dire. You could come home one day in this incredibly volatile industry post-pandemic where you all of a sudden do not have a job and you do not have a place to stay. You can have, again, people that are suffering with addiction or people that live with mental health. And so each strand of folks that are in that state need different approaches in order to have sustainable solutions. And so my plan really is to identify what strand or what stream we need to look at. My thing is about making sure that we have wraparound facilities on the intern to make sure people have places to help with the hardship that they're going through. Looking at creating incentives for people to get in the industry of working with people who are suffering from addiction or mental health. So by approaching the government to see if they could take the opportunity to pay for the tuition for people that work in the addictions or in the portfolio of mental health, or people that manage programs that deal with management for affordable housing. These are all critical factors if we're going to get this right. But overall, I think having resources that are out and ready, we can't do it by arresting our way through. We have to have outward-facing resources in the social services to deal with people that are in crisis. And I think if we have those resources, it will help minimize the flashpoints or the disorder or the random acts of criminal activity that's taking place in our city right now.
I would like to use recent technology to do modular housing. We've seen micro homes, we've seen 3D printing. There's so many ways that we could be rapidly developing better forms of shelter. to ease the pressure off the existing shelter system and also give people middle-term transitional housing options. And those are mainly for people fleeing violence, people that are trying to transition off of substance use disorders, and even people that are going through like injury. So people that are disabled are making up 50% of the homeless community. Because we don't build accessible housing, we don't build housing that accommodates diverse disabilities. And disability is something that's inevitable. We live in a society that loves to avoid that, because if you're not producing product for the state, what use are you? So we really need to change that attitude and just start building homes first, so that we can start understanding what people's needs are and figuring out how they can be of service in different parts of community service. And that could be as simple as tending a community garden, or, maintaining social order in your community. There's so many different ways that we could incorporate disabled people back into the world of work, but we need to break our mold around traditional work and the purposes that they could serve for capital as opposed to social capital.
What is your position on the current state of the TTC, and what policies do you envision based on your assessment?
So again, this is where my experience is in law enforcement for a long period of time. I believe I have the best plan that is out there. And so the current state right now, when I knock on doors right across the city, the safety concerns on transit, especially on the subway system, is causing people to change their behavior. People are afraid to use the subways. I have parents who will not let their children use the subways, or they'll either drive or Uber or things along those lines. But we have to appreciate that the vast majority of newcomers that come here, they don't come with bikes and they don't come with cars. They have to use the subway. So first and foremost, recognizing that there is a segment of community that are coming here to try to develop and prosper like everybody else. I want to create a culture of safety. So by utilizing special constables, having them highly trained specifically towards people that live with mental health and addiction, because it's the crime is one thing, but the disorder is what is more frequent and prevalent. It could be people getting too close in your public space, or lots of yelling and screaming, or spitting at, or racial slurs. I've seen all of these things because I've driven the subway, and people aren't generally going to call the police for these, because they're looking at the person causing this and realizing, this is not necessarily criminal. These are also people that need help. But I'm going to have what's called an assist button. And that assist button, unlike the strip that's there, where if you hit it, it stops the subway, fire, police, ambulance come on board, you're subjected to a $500 fine if misused. People generally will hesitate to help, but people generally will not hesitate to assist. So, when you hit that button, the subway does not stop, but it activates the cameras. The cameras see what the problem is. And not only does it activate the cameras, but all staff that are working, if they're on a platform or wherever they are, will be aware of that situation while the subway is still moving. And I'll have special constables that will be riding on the subway lines because I don't see them. And so now you'll have all of these streams that will have the ability of coming onto the train. And the moment a TTC worker comes on the train, it will add a layer of security to the passengers. And then it will be dealt with, whether by a special constable or someone else to help that person up. And then it branches into my plan of having those additional resources that I spoke about. I can't just take people off. There has to be an added resource, whether it is someone that is, not necessarily taking their medication, or having a bout of some sort, or whether it's suffering from addiction. And then we can transfer them to those resources. I think over a period of time, we'll be able to create that culture of safety so that everyone has a much higher level of comfort when they're riding on the transit system, because right now the ridership is down 30%. That's not good for our economy. It's not good for our small businesses. And people, when they say they don't want to go downtown because they don't feel safe, well, if you're a small business owner, that is not a good message for you. So making sure that all of these connective pieces are looked at and addressed, and we try to get the best solutions possible. And that's the key to success.
One of the biggest problems with the TTC is that it only looks at public transit in the way of buses, subways, and streetcars. If it was connected to the bike share program, if it was connected to electric scooters, you could start planning full routes between transit hubs and people's homes and workplaces. This is why I'm proposing bringing all the fragmented divisions and departments of transit under the TTC. And this is where we need to be using the real estate underground and above ground on the TTC to generate revenue. So like a few years ago, they were talking about air rights on Rail Deck Park. There are air rights above the subways. We could be working with private developers to leverage revenues from for-profit and social housing built on top of transit stations. And you could also have commercial tenants in the TTC, above the TTC, and that generates revenue for the city. One of the biggest issues with affordability is the lack of supply, and we need better housing on top of existing community assets like our transit stations, our libraries, community centers that could be offering these mixed amenities without us having to build luxury amenities.
How do you plan to address growing concerns around safety in public places?
Yes, so it's about having the right resources in the right place. Right now, I do not see enough supports. There are certain areas of the city where we're seeing disorder. And when you leave disorder unchecked, it can create an environment where it could escalate. So I'm addressing dealing with these situations with the right resources at a very early entry level to avoid it from magnifying. And downtown right now, it is not as healthy as it could be. I'm hearing this from the businesses. I'm hearing this from people that go and visit downtown. So we have a responsibility to help those that are vulnerable by trying to have more resources that are at the lower level in order to help make things safer.
So this is where harm reduction through shelter becomes a really big part of my platform, because the truth is we have people that are housed with addiction issues. The difference is visibility. If we really want to help people that are homeless, help them into shelter where they can privately deal with their issues with a sense of dignity. And that's why I would like to do modular housing, because you can develop housing in 9 months as opposed to 2, 3, 10 years that we're seeing for the single family home. With modular housing, you take the parts and you stack them like Lego. And that allows us to build and densify these supportive homes for people struggling with these issues. If we don't want them to struggle permanently, we have to get them off the street. And this is why John Tory's strategy of just ending the shelter hotels wasn't a feasible solution for working class people. Because the truth is, we are the ones taking transit, we're in the public spaces, not the public officials. So this is why we are experiencing violence in a really intense way, because the public services that allowed homelessness to be invisible and tended to evaporated during COVID. And then the workers were unable to live in the city. So when workers cannot live in the city to provide harm reduction, and we can't provide harm reduction within closed courtyards, then we have this visible public violence that is really, I don't know how to describe it, but it's always been present, but it's been intensified in a way that we can't really vocalize, because we haven't had this 24-hour news cycle plus social media plus an around the clock reporting from individuals giving their personal takes on it. So it's not that we can't solve this violence. We need to be more strategic and focused about the long-term plan for dealing with violence in and out of the house.
The city has a $1.5 billion budget downfall. So what's your strategy to fill this budget deficit?
Well, first and foremost, from being experienced with that $1 billion budget that I had to deal with, it really is looking at a couple of factors, and that is, when we're looking at value for dollar, as a government, are we spending the money properly to create the environments for all of our communities to have that healthy, prosperous life? I'm not seeing it right now. So how we spend money is critical. Where we put our resources is critical. And so first I would do a detailed look at the actual budget. And people say that the budget is out there to the public, but we're talking about bar graphs and pie charts. I need to see what the resources are, how they're allocated, what are the measurable outcomes to what they're doing. Is there duplicity? IT section has over 1,000 people. Can we use digital processes to help create better customer service and not affect quality? So there are many different angles in which I would look at what we need to do. to run a fiscally and responsible budget. Before we can ask anyone else for help, we have to make sure that we're accounting, that we're spending properly. And I strongly believe that we're at a reset point and making sure that we're spending our monies and funds towards people first, especially people that are in need of help. Will help us in the long run to have that healthy city that we can move towards.
My plans are to leverage the public land for nonprofit development. One of the biggest issues is the cost of living, and it's rent, groceries, it's transit, and we could be building housing on top of transit to cut down people's transportation costs. We could be rezoning our buildings to have commercial urban farms and vertical farms through hydroponic, a variety of new technologies to provide sustainable produce growing to reduce the cost of grocery bills. And with public housing on top of public assets, you bring down the cost of people's rents. This is not about me becoming the mayor as much as me restoring the public realm to the people who have built it. And that's really what my campaign is about when I say democracy for the working class, because the truth is, not all of us have trust funds, but our trust fund is the investment our parents have made through pensions, tax dollars, union dues into this public service, and we have a right to claim it. And the only thing stopping us is really our belief of our entitlement to it. And this is where you've heard me in interviews say, like, have the audacity of Doug Ford, because Doug Ford is the son of a former politician that sat on the PC backbencher from Mike Harris. Like, he walks around with the audacity that the public services belong to him, and he has the right to determine what happens to it for us. Why don't we walk around with that same audacity? Your parents contributed just as much as his parents, and we deserve to have an equal say in what makes public services good for all of us. And it's not the sale of them. It's allowing us to be stewards of our services by living on top of them, close by them, being able to have works like ground station work and above housing. It's so strange to say, but it's like work from home is not a foreign or unimplementable idea. It's a matter of the imagination of working class people to bring these operations home. And you won't get that from a group that's had the privilege of being politicians for more than a decade.
Now, this is a question we ask of all candidates being interviewed. What makes you the favourable candidate for the City of Toronto?
My platform is the best platform. My platform comes from a lived experience, being a newcomer into Canada, and some of the journeys and obstacles that my parents went through, some of the obstacles that I went through from being a constable all the way up to being a chief, working in the communities right across from a local level, not just a small district, but the entire city, understanding the importance of diversity and the fact that newcomers are coming in. We're going to be 3.5 million in the next 7 years. I want to make sure that our responsibility is creating a platform so they are on a level playing field. It is not fair. It will not drive our economy, and making sure that we're supporting small businesses. So keeping a safe, vibrant city is key and critical. Making sure that that supply issue when it comes to housing and affordable housing is looked after fast and immediately. And also making sure that the gridlock issues after 38 years of policing, we put the right tools and resources in place so that it is a healthy, mobile city that will bring in and attract jobs, will bring in and attract big businesses, but more importantly, allow the opportunity of our newcomers to have the journey that I was fortunate to have, and also to create jobs and an opportunity for my kids to have a home one day. I'm not seeing it right now. And so I need to make sure that it's about our future. And I bring that to the table, and I believe I'm the best choice for it.
I would say it's just, I don't want to be mayor. I know it's such a strange thing to say, but I've never craved power. What I crave is like a safe society, something that's fair, something that allows me to seek out all opportunities just like every boy or girl that has been born into this country. And that's only allowed to happen if we level the playing field. We can no longer continue to cater to one group that is considered job creators. How can you create jobs if you don't know what my needs are? And this is something we need to critically interrogate ourselves as consumers, taxpayers, residents, whatever title that you identify with. Like, are you getting the value of your tax dollars? Are these representatives actually close enough to the shop floor where you work to deliver on the promises that are needed to elevate the working class, because that's who's really suffering. It's not the corporations, the executives, or the management consultants. It's the people that they hire to do the grunt work. And grunt work is administration, coordinating, organizing. It's all the things that they don't want to come into contact with common people for. So if we're going to do all the work, you might as well get your fair share of the value that's created from this corporation known as the City of Toronto. And I'm the only candidate with that message. I'm not promising you to be like your savior for 30 years, a 10-year strategy. I'm trying to tell you what we can do within 3 years, because that's all I really need to make you realize that you have a larger stake than you believe in this city. And it will take me 3 years to teach you how to really claim ownership over it. And that's what I've been doing as a policy analyst, just sharing information, letting people realize, like, you're paying for public programs and services. Why aren't you taking advantage of them?
As we approach Election Day, which is June the 26th, we're providing an opportunity for candidates to reach out on our platforms. So this is what each candidate had to say addressing the Black and other racialized communities across the city.
Having me as your mayor is putting a person in place that understands the journey, that has been in those communities for 38 years, not when the ribbon cuttings are there, not when the lights and camera and media are there, but being there in times when things were normal, having the conversations with mothers and parents, some of the difficulties that they're having, whether we talk about food and provisions. There are young kids in those communities that will have something as small as half a banana for a day. Understanding those journeys, looking at the quality of life when you walk up and down some of those stairwells that people have not been addressing, looking at the crime and disorder. We have to create healthier environments so that there's hope and so there's opportunity, so that we can thrive as a community. So you have that promise from me that I understand the journey, and I'm making sure that there's a focus, and these are healthy discussions that will be brought to City Hall, because they're talking about everything else and I know that it is something that is real, and I'll make sure that it is a focal point of discussion at the tables at City Hall so that we can add proper value to all of our city. Every voice is going to be incredibly important if we're going to be a successful, vibrant city that promotes inclusion and opportunity.
I would like to remind them that we have just as much share and responsibility of pushing this city forward as our elected officials. 25 people cannot adequately represent you. You need to be connecting regularly as a community through dinners, through book clubs at your local library, to ask yourselves, are you getting the value of these assets that you have been paying into? And that's the community center, the strip mall. It's everything around you that your tax dollars subsidize, provide rebates for, and we don't claim them as owners. We are really passive shareholders, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in, because we continue to allow things to happen to us as opposed to directing the future that we want. And I know that it's been hard having to work 2 or 3 jobs, but it's a lot easier when you share your work burden with a team. And that's just not in your workplaces, it's your community spaces as well. So I would encourage people to use this by-election to look across at your neighbor and ask them, like, what do you want? This is what I want. This is what I need. This is where we can meet in the middle. And this is where we should meet our government. Because the truth is, despite where we come from, we all want 5 basic things: good and clean shelter, clean and good water, air, food, and a sense of belonging with our community, and a sense of security with ourselves and for our families and the people that we love. And that's only met if the structural environment is actually designed for the people that it's meant to serve.
And these were some of the candidates running to be mayor of the City of Toronto. And for more elections related coverage, don't forget to follow us on our socials at Vibe105TO or visit us at vibe105to.com.